All right, the Reds, it's the preview show. Liverpool v Burnley at Anfield on Sunday. With me to preview this match is Dan Austin and Jay McKenna. Jay, I'll start with you, mate. Some heads did fall off after the result at Goodison Park. I think it's fair to say we saw that social media, real life, Twitter, wherever you look, really, there were Reds who, you know, they think that it's gone, and they think just because City are now a point ahead and it's in their hands and all the rest of it. God knows how they're going to be on Sunday at 12 o'clock because City have got Watford at home on Saturday, and I'm not really expecting Watford to do too much there. So we could be 4 points behind, but we've just got to sort of block everything out, haven't we? Go there, support the team, you know, do what we do as supporters and hope that they do what they do as a group of footballers who've done really well this season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, you want to see a response from the lads, you want to see them send a bit of a message, and I think, you know, you probably want to see a bit of a response from fans. I think it's an understatement to say people's heads went a bit on Sunday, probably to varying degrees, but I don't, you know, I think even the most staunch, you know, Liverpool are the best thing in the world. Fan could never say, you know, oh, you know, that was disappointing, that was a pity. And, you know, I made text me, that's it, City will win the league by 6 points now, and I was like, that's again a big leap. But this, you know, people have reacted to that because there's a sense of disappointment. It's opportunity. It was there, and we had a chance. And I think because you look at that game, you know, which way you want to see a response from the lads. I'm looking at that game and I'm seeing, well, Liverpool could have changed that. It wasn't like a game where you were thinking, well, maybe it just wasn't going to happen. It was like something could have happened there. We could have, if we'd have made this change or we'd have tried that. We'll never know. That's with hindsight. But, you know, you'd like to think the lads will come out on Sunday and they'll put a bit of a show on. And hopefully the fans will carry on from where we've left off at home. Lots of people I've spoken to about the atmosphere in the last few games. It hasn't felt forced. It hasn't felt like we've worried too much about, you know, oh, we've got to do all of this to get behind them. You know, see lots of people saying, oh, we need a coach welcome, we need to do this. And it's like, no, we just need to turn up on Sunday, wherever you are on the ground, and do what you've done. Just sing and get behind the lads. And it's been very natural so far, and we need to continue that so the lads don't get too pressure. Because Burnley are a team that will try and frustrate, they will work hard, and it won't be so easy to break them down. I'd love something like Watford where we scored early, but that might not be the case, and I'd just like to see the lads plug away and, you know, hopefully come away with a comfortable win.
There is a recent pattern which sort of, you know, Jay's alluding to there, Dan, which is that, you know, we draw with West Ham, then it's Bournemouth next game, heads fell off around West Ham, there was the rallying calls then and the spying cop lads and stuff, and to be fair, the Bournemouth game was one where I thought, oh, they can all get up for it then, the home crowd, because, you know, it was a 3 o'clock, it was a Saturday, it was opposition that wasn't particularly exciting, and yet, you know, the atmosphere was fantastic that day. Then we draw with Man United. We're at home again against Watford straight after that. It's 5-0, an early goal helps, as Jay said, but the atmosphere was really good again. So here we are again, another 0-0, another draw, and another opportunity to show that we're right behind them, albeit that 12 o'clock on a Sunday is not ideal for all that.
It's not, but you can say that about the other games as well. I think, you know, Watford at home on a Wednesday night or whatever it wasn't ideal either, and people still managed to be up for it, and it felt like everyone was having a good time. And yes, the on-pitch stuff helps, but I felt like the atmosphere was good even earlier on than that, even before Manny scores the first. So I'm hoping for something similar again. I think I've noticed that there's been a big gap really between the atmosphere at the home games and the away games recently, and it's sort of the opposite of what you'd expect, in that the away crowd has felt very, very nervous, really tense. There was a lot of, you know, natural aggression at both Old Trafford and Goodison, but nothing that really went beyond that. Certainly at Goodison, lots of people just sort of shouting at the pitch, but not really doing an awful lot in the way of actual like support or singing. And that's understandable because of, first of all, the context of the league season, but also that it's an away derby and it's always going to be like that, even if Liverpool are 11th and Everton are 14th or whatever. But hopefully this can be a nice sort of reset again and can provide us with a bit of impetus, because you would hope that then the Fulham League game, which comes afterwards, is one which is a bit less tense, and it can be an away game where people just enjoy it a little bit more. Because I don't think it's a coincidence that basically in the games where the atmosphere has been very tense and very nervy, and I include the Leicester home game in that as well, that Liverpool haven't managed to get a result. And the games where everyone's turned up and from minute one has been enjoying themselves, they have managed to get a result. And I'm not saying that that's the reason why that they suddenly start playing better because the crowd's lively, but I think it definitely helps. I think definitely once Liverpool score one against Watford the other night, and then the crowd's behind them and the Watford end's quiet and their heads go down a little bit, I think it's really helpful that there's an atmosphere, not even of kind of we often revel in atmospheres at Anfield that are aggressive, that are about sort of fighting against another really good side on a nervy European night and that kind of thing, whereas these league atmospheres have been very different. It's been more about reveling in the fact that your team is well better than the opposition. And I think that must be really good to play in front of, because it gives you a lot of extra confidence as well. If you are comfortable in your own beliefs as a footballer, first of all, and then you're aware that there's 50,000 people all stood around you, sat around you, having a great time and think you're brilliant, that just makes everything a lot easier, I would assume. And it seems like Klopp has enjoyed it as well. You know, he's given it the big one at full time in that Watford game. So I would sort of expect it to be better, certainly, than what a normal 12 o'clock Sunday would be. And I think there has to be a bit of a collective sort of looking at ourselves and the role in which we play in this, because you know what, we could go and have a great atmosphere and give everything on Sunday and Liverpool draw, or Burnley get something from a set piece and you lose. But at least you can walk out and say, you know what, we had to go and we've done our bit. Whereas if you end up getting to the point where you feel like you're not doing your best and the crowd's getting on the backs a little bit and then the result doesn't come, I personally would feel implicated in that. I felt like we were a bit implicated in it in the derby the other day, in that there was very little active support going on, I thought.
So with the Leicester game as well, it wasn't nice to have Van Dijk saying you can sense tension in the stand. You don't want to hear one of your players saying that, because like you say, you start thinking, well, hang on, we're there to, like, you know, make the atmosphere right for these fellas, and if they're coming off the pitch going, I was just trying to, like, win you the game there, and, like, I was shitting myself playing the
pass. Playing the ball up the line, lads, and you're screaming at me.
But especially when it is a home game as well, and that's meant to be the advantage. If they're coming off thinking like it was a disadvantage to have played in front of their own supporters, then that's completely wrong. And we do need to be going into it and thinking we can affect this in a positive way, even if it's only a really, really small proportion of the final result.
And this game comes after City, so City could be 4 points out. I am a bit more optimistic that I think, when, you know, you've done them season trackers that I think the MEN and the Echo have been publishing every so often. I had City to drop some points in this phase, and I think Watford's at seeing, you know, given the players they've got missing. But equally, we could be turning up at 5 to 12 and stood in the ground, and, you know, City are 4 points clear, and, you know, our mentality can't be, panic, because we've still got our 90 minutes to come. I think it's all, you see them points numbers, and City have had that, and now they'll have that pressure of thinking, you know, they're leading, we're chasing them, we've got nothing to lose. We should just go in there and try and enjoy it, and let's see what the lads do. And one of the benefits, I think, of that atmosphere being almost a bit more natural and not pressured has been that even if we were going to get angsty, it wouldn't come until the 60th, 70th, 80th minute if it was still 0-0. The players don't need that, you know, on the 21st minute when, you know, cross comes in and Mane just can't get there and everyone's groaning, like, you know, that's the chance gone. You know, if that's the chance in the 93rd minute and it's 0-0 or 1-1, yeah, fine, a big groan, but, you know, that should be like, come on, we'll get at these again, yeah. If we can do that, then we can get at them again. And I think where you see Liverpool do this really well, and you see Klopp do it, whenever we score a goal or have chances like that, Klopp quickly tell them, no, turn around, face their players and go again, do this again to them. And I think if you see that if we get a bit of a positive start like that, and see from the players, the fans have got to continue their part in that as well. You know, none of this, it's a midday kick-off and it's too early and stuff like that. If you need, you know, I'm not one of these that says you have to have a pint to enjoy the match. You know, if you need a pint to enjoy Liverpool at the minute, then you're probably doing it wrong. So go out there and enjoy them. Go and enjoy them. Go and see, you know, do all you can. We've got 9 games. You know, if we were at this point in a European competition, we'd all be like, we can win this. So maybe we should apply that same kind of mentality to a Premier League game as well.
I mean, every match, particularly given the context, is a big match now. But at the same time, you know, there's some opposition where you think, well, that's more favourable than that. And Burnley right now, they've lost the last 2. The bookies make them 20-1 to win at Anfield, which is huge odds, obviously. They haven't won at Anfield since 1974, and Liverpool have won the last 9 of the 11 played against Burnley in all competitions. We obviously also won 3-1 there in December after they took the lead, and 3 second-half goals for us gave us the point. So when you think about this game, are you fairly confident about it? Are you like, this is a good time to play them? How are you feeling in general about the opposition?
I'm not sure I'd say it's a good time to play them necessarily, because I feel like they're their own sort of weird, distinct side, and they're always capable of doing what Burnley do, regardless of their form. If you were playing against Watford, I'd be more into what form are they in, or if you're playing against Fulham, I'd be more thinking about what form are they in. But when it's this kind of very unique style of football that they play, I think form is something that I would read less into. I certainly wouldn't expect them to do enough to be able to win a game at Anfield, but what they could possibly do is do enough to frustrate us and maybe be able to take a lead like they did in, well, first of all, that game back in December, but also they did that in the previous game at Anfield in 2017 when we played them in the league season there. Chris Wood scores early for them. They're definitely capable of hurting Liverpool because we've seen that in the past few years since they've been promoted again under Dyche. But I think, first of all, they're a lot less good this season at what they're supposed to be good at compared to previous years. So last year they finished 7th by basically barely conceding any goals, certainly at home, and being able to sneak 1 or 2 in most matches. This year, they're conceding in the vast majority of the games that they play. So they concede, I think it's 3 to Crystal Palace and 2 to Newcastle in the last couple of games. So if they're doing that against teams that they in theory should probably be better than, then Liverpool should be able to score a half full against them. I still wouldn't expect that. But I think I'm not thinking that they can keep Liverpool out in the sense that maybe they could have last season or the season before when they looked a bit more solid, kind of sort of looked like they believed in the game plan a little bit more. Because I think for any team like this, once you get to a certain stage, like they were playing in Europe at the beginning of this season, you kind of feel like you should move on and evolve from that style of football. Stoke tried to do it for a while. They get rid of Pulis. They tried to play football under Hughes. They tried to play football under Lambert. And it just never quite works for them. And I think it might be the same for Burnley, in that once you start bringing in better quality footballers, ironically, so they've got the likes of Stephen Defoe, they tried to bring in, or they did bring in Vidra from Derby, and have barely played him because he doesn't fit into the style that they sort of are still hanging on to. I think it's sort of ironic that once you try and sort of push on from it, it can inadvertently drag you back down in a sense. And they look like they're in this sort of halfway house to me at the minute, where they've actually got some quite talented footballers. Like they've got a quite good young winger called Dwight McNeil, who's got a bit of tricks about him. He's quick, but they don't look to actually use him in any way. He's very much there to put balls on Chris Wood's head, and they seem to be a team that's quite confused about their own identity. And I think that will suit Liverpool more than what it would have in the past playing against Burnley.
I think it's interesting because if you look at on paper, obviously Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes, 2 good players, scored 13 goals since Boxing Day for Burnley. But if you read the last couple of reports about how they've actually been playing, it sounds quite similar to Liverpool, to be honest, in that they're saying, you've got that threat, that obvious threat up front, the stats show how obvious the threat is, and yet the final ball's lacking, crosses are lacking. That's where they haven't been playing well, the delivery into those forwards, and that's kind of a bit of a theme for us as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I do wonder how you'll see them set up. I think, you'll know early on how, if they're setting up just thinking, we'll go on, try and do something, then we'll wait for a set piece or something like that, because, as you say, their quality might not be as good at the minute. I think that's where we might struggle, because our forwards, I wouldn't say they're not firing, but it's like they feel pressured, and I think the fans could easily get on, feeling pressured that we've got to take these chances. Against Watford, as an example, they do try and play the ball out, they do try and get it into their midfield, they do try and get it to Delafeu and up to Dini, and they were trying to play football at times. We were just much better, our defenders pinching the ball and then playing into the midfield and getting it forward. Salah was very wide and trying to get in behind their full-back an awful lot. And I think, if Burnley just sit there and say, well, go ahead, we're interested to see what you've got to do, I think I'd be quite, not concerned, but I'd be quite intrigued to see how Liverpool react to that. I almost do think it's a bit like the second half of the derby, where you think, well, if it looks like that, the Liverpool just have to be a bit more attacking and just say, well, no, we're just going to go for this. Because I think, I do think Sunday is, we have to win Sunday. For perception and everything, for sending a statement, remaining in touch with City, or hopefully if we go back above them if something happened in the Watford game. But that idea that I think the fans want to see that, it just takes a bit of pressure off us, takes a bit of, just frees up that space in your mind where you're thinking, oh, what about this game, what about that game? And then we go to Bayern Munich and everyone's a bit happy, and then there's a bit more space. You've got Fulham, and then there's an international break, so there's a gap then until we play a Spurs. I think, I'm in for our attack, I don't, just think, no, we're just going to go for it. We're just going to give them a bit of freedom, I suppose is the thing. I don't want us to sit there and think, well, don't put too much, let's always go through Salah, or let's always go through Mane, or let's aim for Bobby all the time. Let's maybe just start a couple in the midfield and just say, Keita or Shakiri or someone, and just say, well, come on, let's just go for it, get a bit of the ball, push them back, make them have to think about what we're going to do. Because I've seen teams like Burnley come to Anfield enough times where they do just spend 10-15 minutes where they're almost just a bit like, go on, we'll see what you've got. Yeah. We'll see what you can do first. We'll see what Liverpool will get in today. And I think, we probably scare Burnley if we, in the first 10-15 minutes, we're creating chances, having lots of the ball, that they think, all right, we've got that Liverpool, all right, unlucky lads, let's all do what we can. And there'll be a amongst the crowd and the players, there'll be a sense this is coming, this is going to happen. But if Burnley, if Liverpool aren't quite on it, and you know Burnley are frustrating us, very easily I think they'll build confidence and think, well, we can just make this really hard. Because the one thing you will get from Burnley, you know, their midfield, is they work very, very, very hard. They will do their best to just make it difficult. Even in that game, you know, away from home at Turf Moor, when it doesn't feel quite won until we break away and score. And I think there's that feeling sometimes when we, you know, even when they have that chance and Alisson makes the really good save and, you know, plays the ball out quickly, they Burnley do that very well. They're one of them teams that almost builds the pressure towards the end, where they, you know, they've made you feel desperate at times. And it's probably why, you know, for all the same reasons we might be slightly concerned about Burnley. If people are looking at the fixture list, they're probably thinking, oh, Man City have got to go to Burnley. You know, and you know, you've got to go to Burnley and do that, and that's very hard. But, you know, that's still the same Burnley team. They don't travel as well, but they are a good team. I just hope, you know, given the goals they've conceded and the fixtures they've conceded recently, you might think, well, you know, if Liverpool can get at them early, Burnley will almost have that here we go again feeling, which, you know, I'd much rather have, and that, you know, that will appease the crowd, might be the wrong word, but, you know, we'll all feel a bit more relaxed about it.
As Jay says, Burnley are a different proposition on the road. They've only won 3 matches in the Premier League on the road this season, and they've conceded 27 goals, so you kind of feel like Liverpool will get some chances in the match. Neil Atkinson, as ever, has been speaking to opposition fans this week for the other content that we put together, the podcast, which you should, of course, get involved in and have a listen to. Here's what he's took from those conversations with the Tactics Board now.
Sean Dyche's side will almost certainly line up in a 4-4-2. It's how they lined up against Tottenham at home when they beat them 2-1. He's got himself settled with Ashley Barnes and the mighty Chris Wood up top and got himself into a nice little pattern there. You've got Taylor at left back. You've also got Tarkowski and me. Bardsley's been doing really, really well. Since the turn of the year, Burnley's form's improved markedly. Although in the last 2 they were poor, they were abject at Newcastle supposedly, and they lost the other one as well to Crystal Palace. But what's changed it for them since the turn of the year, I think, is a couple of things. First and foremost, the goalkeeper. The alchemy of goalkeeping, what it is to be a defensive unit. It's not as though Burnley aren't giving up as many shots, but the shots they're giving away have been better ones to give away. That's the first thing I'd say. But the second thing I'd say as well is they've worked better as a unit. Heaton makes sense with this back four. It's not a conversation on the relative merits of the goalkeeper. I think Heaton is a goalkeeper. I think he's possibly a better goalkeeper than Joe Hart. But it isn't really about that. It's not about whether or not Joe Hart was making saves or otherwise. It's that this works quite nicely as a little back five. Heaton will obviously start at Anfield. I think it'll be 4-4-2, and we don't come up against much 4-4-2. But we know it'll be a very, very compact 4-4-2. That's what Burnley have been doing now for many a year. Liverpool obviously looking to get around them, getting up the pitch. All the obvious hits there from the Reds. Full-backs will be pushed right up. You know how this works at this stage. It will sort of look like this at times on the pitch, trying to find little spaces and little gaps. It'll be Jack Cork in midfield with Ashley Westwood, who's having a really good season for Burnley. They're talking him up a lot. Right-hand side will be Hendrick or Goodmanson. If he was going to go 4-5-1, it'd be Hendrick in the middle, Goodmanson right. I don't think he will. I think he will go 4-4-2, and I think he'll go Hendrick ahead of Goodmanson because they can't quite get his fitness where they want him to be. But he's got a really, really good delivery on him, Goodmanson, and it also gives Sean Dyche a sub, which I think he often feels as though he hasn't had. Left-hand side, Dwight McNeil's been doing really well. He was hooked early after the Spurs game, in the game that followed against Newcastle. He was having a bad day that day, but he's got himself back in the 19-year-old. He is a Burnley prospect. Wood and Barnes up top. There's nothing complicated about all of this. We know what Burnley are going to do. There'll be tweaks, there'll be cleverness, there'll be, you know, Sean Dyche is a very, very good manager. We will know it won't be easy. We know that Burnley will be muscular. It's very much, as it so often is at Anfield, about Liverpool getting that first goal early, and then going from there and proving themselves to be the better side.
Okay, thanks to Neil there. We've talked a lot about Burnley in this game so far, so let's forget about Burnley now and talk about the Reds exclusively. The team, we're obviously talking about this a couple of days before the actual game. Things may well change between now and then, but it seems that Firmino's expected to return to the side. Paul Joyce has written something saying he expects that to be the case. The only other things that we know so far is that Milner didn't train, because he's still feeling a hamstring, which he was feeling at Goodison Park. Also, Moreno as well is out, but I don't think that's of any great consequence to anyone at the moment. And Dejan Lovren, who's also been struggling with his hamstring since Wolves away on January the 7th, is still struggling away with that, which is, obviously means it's likely to be the same partnership at centre-half. But in terms of questions, I mean, Firmino, I think, fairly obviously will return, but you mentioned before Shakiri, and I think that's a possible topic here for discussion, because we haven't really seen him too much. I mean, he's not been on the pitch since Manchester United when he gets 18 minutes there. And, after having a very productive December, when he gets 4 of the 6 goals he scored for us in the league, it's all gone a bit quiet around him. And, people do the thing, I do it as well, where you're like, well, we don't know all the information, and we don't know how fit he is, and we don't know what he's been training like at Melwood. But nevertheless, if he's on the bench, you kind of think he's available to do something. And it was a little bit of a surprise to see him not get on at Goodison, for instance.
Yeah, I think part of the feeling for that is if it feels like we've become a bit rigid in what our formation should be. We've gone back to 4-3-3 and we're sticking to that religiously at the moment. And I just genuinely don't know why. I'd be really intrigued to Klopp comment on that if anyone was able to put that question to him, because you look at that in hindsight, the United game, you're thinking to yourself, one goes up top earlier in this game and you put 3 behind. I can understand why when he brings Sturridge on, he does that, but you're thinking then, well, maybe Shakiri was the one to do it, someone who has just got a bit of quality and a bit of strength and can keep the ball. I just felt like in the derby, we just seemed one light in attack, one short of someone that can contribute something and get a bit further forward. And I don't know whether that's just a formational thing, whether the way the 3 play together. But even, I was even thinking, when he's looking at that change, does he just move does he put a Henderson or Wijnaldum in that 3 just for 10 minutes and just see if it makes a difference to how they play? I do think, he has to try and change something in midfield just to give himself another dimension, another player that is happy to get on the ball, a player that might get the ball in midfield if Burnley are sitting off from us, and the players haven't got no space and Salah can't get in behind, or Firmino's getting the ball but he's having to come backwards, a player that he can pop it off to and all done with it. So, I think the natural instinct from people is Shakiri, because they've seen what he does a bit more, whether it's Keita, but there seems to be a question there about Klopp trusting him. Read some stuff lately about Klopp fully trusting him, yeah. But you'd like to think, or you would think, you can afford to play a Shakiri or try Shakiri at home to Burnley, given all the things we've just said. Yeah,
the trust thing seems to be, it was certainly the sort of conclusion. I wrote something on Shakiri this week, and when I was going back through Klopp quotes and things like that, he talks about him in December and how well he was playing then and his contribution, but he said it was almost what he didn't say. You could work it out though from that. You know what I mean? So he was talking about how good he was with the ball and kept saying that. And so it was almost like, are you saying he's not that good without it then? I think you might be. That's the theory most people are going with at the moment for why we haven't seen him.
Well, I think of all the options that he could go with, he's certainly the one that would offer the least defensively as well. Yeah. So if he thinks he can put Keita in, he gets the offensiveness of Keita, but he also gets someone that's going to naturally just hold a little bit deeper than where Shakiri probably wants to play. I think there's also, he has a difficulty in playing like him, Salah and Firmino all at the same time, because I think Shakiri wants to operate in a lot of the same spaces as them too. So for example, when they play against Bournemouth, and Salah's brilliant, I think a lot of that is because he's got loads of space to himself and a big pitch to run into, because he's playing on the same side with Gini Wijnaldum behind him, and Milner's playing right full-back as well. So he's basically got that entire half of the pitch to himself. Yeah. And there are games where he needs a bit more help, he needs someone playing balls, but he was on it that day. And because he was on it, he basically owned that entire quarter of the pitch. And anyone else operating in that area with him would have just been a distraction more than anything. So I think Shaqiri's sort of hamstrung by that in a sense, in that you've got to find somewhere where he fits in, can play his own game, but also isn't taken away from someone else's. So maybe that's part of the thing, and maybe in a 4-3-3, I think that's harder to do. Yeah. If Salah's playing in the 4-2-3-1 as the one up front and Shaqiri's out wide, then it's a lot easier. Whereas if he's sticking to the 4-3-3, maybe it's harder for him to see where he gets him in. I think my choice would be to put Keita back in. I think it's really strange how up until pretty much 2 weeks ago he was saying that he was one of the first names on the team sheet and he'd been training really well and he was looking good in the games. Thought he was great against Burnley, thought he was probably Liverpool's best player. Against Bournemouth rather, and then he's just bombed him again. You know, Liverpool needs a goal at Old Trafford, looks like he doesn't even consider bringing him on. Liverpool needs a goal at Goodison, doesn't even consider bringing him on. I think that's quite weird because he's gone from being really publicly very positive about him, and we were all seeing how good he was in them games. He was really, really good against Bournemouth, back to just not using him at all. So I think the commonalities of why we played so well against Bournemouth and Watford for me were, first of all, the midfield had Fabinho and Wijnaldum in it. And secondly, it had another midfielder playing a lot further forward. Ironically, in the Watford game, it was James Milner. He was pressing really high up the pitch, winning the ball back, playing little 1-2s, giving goes with people through balls. I think we need that sort of player. The thing recently for me is that in the 2 games that he's played at Old Trafford and Goodison, I don't really think Henderson's given us anything, and I'm a fan of him. I know a lot of people aren't, but I think he's one of Liverpool's better midfielders. But in those 2, he's just not really, he's played all right. He's been perfectly functional, but he's not giving Liverpool anything going forward, and neither are the other 2 alongside him. So I think for me, he's the most expendable of the 3 for this game. So I'll be looking to go Fabinho, Wijnaldum and Keita, with a combination of Wijnaldum and Keita being asked to get forward a bit more and also run with the football as well, I think, because I think in both of them games at Old Trafford and Goodison, that's what we missed. It was lots of people getting the ball and looking up, which in theory is positive, but when you've got 2 banks of 4 sat in front of you, maybe you just need to carry it to them.
And that was noticeable against Watford, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Like, as soon as you got there, you were like, oh, they're running at them, they're taking people on, and this is what
it makes their defenders
it makes someone commit. It makes someone has to go, well, I'm going to step out, and then suddenly when Wijnaldum's got a bit of space,
and this is why people are saying we missed Chamberlain, because Chamberlain did exactly that. He'd get the ball, he'd turn and he'd run at them, and if they didn't come at him, he could have a shot. If they did come at him, he had someone to pop it off to. He's playing to Firmino, plays into Salah, and you're through on goal, because the defenders had to commit. And I think you'd like to see a bit of that. And I think it's clear, whether it's Shakiri or it's Keita, there's an expectation, I think, from fans that you should see one of them feature on Sunday. And I'm not saying the manager has to do that because of how people feel, but it seems painfully obvious to people that something needs to change somewhere. It's not going to be in the 3, or whether it's a 3 and a 1. So it's a Salah, or it's a Shakiri, or it's a Keita. And you want to see that. I just want to see a bit more of an attacking intent. Say to 4 or 5 players, go and express yourself in there after pitch and put them under a bit of pressure, because the lads at the back can do the business really well, and that's been demonstrated. I don't think we need to worry too much about being defensively solid, not from a Burnley team anyway. I think Everton tried that really well. We're trying to get in behind down the flanks, but against Burnley, I don't think any of us are expecting that. They might surprise us, but we're not going to see that happen. So I think we're going to be looking at this and thinking, all right, they're going to try for set pieces, they're going to try and slowly work their way up the pitch. Well, Fabinho and the 4 lads at the back can deal with that, and then let 4 or 5 players in the other half of the pitch do the business and hopefully put them under a bit of pressure.
I think
it was a score.
I think the fullbacks are dead important in this as well. I think their delivery is going to be really important. I'm going to go 2-0 to Liverpool.
Okay, Jay?
2-0.
Okay. I'll go 2-0 as well, that'd be all right, wouldn't it? Okay, we're going to finish up this preview show with another Inside Tour feature, where we have a bit of a chat with one of the contributors this time around. It is Dan Morgan. If you want more in terms of the tactics, the team news and that kind of thing, subscribe to Tour Player. We'll be reacting to Jurgen Klopp's press conference, the other stuff that's going on, the team news and everything else. We'll be speaking to opposition fans, loads of reasons to get involved. It's a good time to be a Liverpool fan, despite what some people say. That's been the preview show. Here's Inside Tour and Dan Morgan.
Oh, favourite away. It's a toss-up between Villa Park and Carroll Road. Something about Norwich I really like. Don't know where's the colours, or the city's quite nice as well, but I really like it. Villa Park, I've had some really good FA Cup semi-finals, so that probably sways it for me. So I hope they come back up for that alone. So my favourite Liverpool goal is Steven Gerrard's equaliser in the 2000s, maybe 2001 Goodison derby. Liverpool are getting beat 1-0. I think Kevin Campbell scored. Gerrard shifts the ball to his right and absolutely leathers the ball straight as an arrow right into the Gladys Street. And I'm actually in the Everton side stand. I think it's the Bullens, and he runs right past me, cup in his ear, and I'll never forget it. Great goal. My favourite kit is the 2004 to 2006 home kit that we win in Istanbul in, purely so because of its shade of red. I'm big on actual shades of red that Liverpool should play in, and that's the best one that I've seen, I think. First match was Villa at home around 1992 maybe. I just remember the old main stand with the different colours on each block. I can't remember the score or anything like that, but I was only a nipper, so. It's quite niche this. I remember someone once saying to Jan Kronkamp, "Fuck off you, Mike Dixon," who was a character from a mid-90s soap based in Liverpool called Brookside. And he doesn't even look like him, to be fair, but it just really made me laugh. Ander Herrera, by a country mile. Everything about him I can't bear. He really boils my blood, but, you know, fair play to him. He got Steven Gerrard sent off, which, you know, if the fuse on the other foot, it'd be flare time, I think. I tend to go, I live in town, so I tend to go to town for a pre-match pint, so anywhere like Newington Temple, places around, anywhere around Bold Street really is always good for a pint before the game if you're not going down to the grounds until late on. I think it's Milan Jovanovic, if I pronounced that right, 2010, he's under Hodgson, that era. I just remember this game where the ball's in the sky and he goes to control it and then just ends up swan diving forward like he's going to head the ball, misses that, and it bounces. And I think honestly, the game was about 20 minutes in and I walked out. I might have done.